Is your person is a white male, 5'10", 6 foot, white shirt, blue hat.
We'll try this now. Welcome back to Behind the Badge. This month is August, and that brings along the Dream Cruise. I'm your host, Andrew Hadfield. What I'd like to go over this month is a whole bunch of safety tips that help keep you and your family safe when you come out to our event. The first thing we have is our Kids Rules section, where we talk about safety in a large crowd. Every day, kids and parents head out to busy places such as shopping malls, sport arenas, and parks. Here at Behind the Badge, we want to make sure to keep you safe in case you and your parents are separated. Stay in the same place you last saw your parents. Moving around makes it harder to find you. Find a police officer, security guard, or employee of the store to come over to you.
What's going on?
And tell them you were lost. The sooner someone knows you were lost, the sooner they can help
Come with me.
If you're outside, find the nearest corner or intersection. That can help on busy days such as Woodward Dream Cruise. Never go with a stranger who tells you to follow them. Stay where you are and ask them to call the police. Older kids might be taught a meeting place when walking around, and if they're lost, they can meet back there. Younger kids might keep a piece of paper with their parents' cell phone number in their pockets to hand a responsible adult, or tattoos like these girls have. Call 911 immediately if you've lost your child. The sooner people are looking for them, the better. If at a store, sports arena, or open area, find an employee, security guard, or park ranger who can help locate them faster, and arrange other personnel because they know the layout better. Remember what your kid is wearing, or snap a picture on your phone as you go out. Dress kids in colorful tops so they are easier to spot in a crowd. Although this can be a scary time for the kids and for the parents, remembering these tips can help keep everyone safe. For the tattoo shown in today's video, go to protection1.com/kids, or for more tips, go to missingkids.com. We hope you enjoyed some safety tips and that if your kid is lost in a crowd, we know now what to do. Next is Deputy Chief Bob North, who's going to go over our Friday, August 20th Cruise Fest Parade and our Saturday, August 21st Woodward Dream Cruise events.
My next guest needs no introduction. Deputy Chief Bob North has been a member of our department since 1979. Prior to his employment with Berkeley, Bob worked for his hometown of Highland Park, Michigan. Since 2005, Bob has served as our department's Deputy Chief. Today, Deputy Chief North is here to discuss the Woodward Dream Cruise and the Cruise Fest activities. Hello, Bob, and welcome to Behind the Badge.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be here.
What can the people expect, and also what are some of the safety tips for our residents if they're going to attend that event?
Well, the Cruise Fest, parking will be available on both sides of 12 Mile in the neighborhood. So one tip I always try and give people is there's a big lot down at the community center on Robina south of Catalpa. If you park there, walk straight up Robina 3 blocks, you're right where the band is. So you're dead center, and there'll be food booths and souvenirs and things on either side of that, and that runs till about 11:30 at night.
About 11:30. What about alcohol at this event?
Unless you're in a bar,
So
or it's a licensed establishment for that particular activity outside, no alcohol whatsoever is permitted out in public.
So it's an alcohol-free event unless you're in a designated area.
That's correct. Or any area that is accessible to the general public, it is also illegal to have alcohol. So if there's a parking lot with a business, it's not legal to have it there either.
Any idea how many cars we'll have this year?
I think we're in the area of 400.
400 classic cruisers.
400
Is that the largest one then?
It could very well be. Time will tell. There's always a few percentage points that don't make it for various reasons, but we're going to be right around the 350, 400 mark, I'm pretty sure.
Well, the Woodward Dream Cruise is a little bigger event, and it seems to be getting bigger every year. What advice would you give our residents for safety and what we expect out there for if they're going to drive in the cruise, or if they're just going to be a spectator?
Well, if you're a spectator in the cruise, you want to park, I would suggest, as far away as you can comfortably walk. That way you don't get caught in a traffic jam or in tight parking spaces. Once again, no open alcohol unless you're inside a bar on Woodward Avenue. No open alcohol is allowed. We don't recommend that either at the parade or on Woodward that you sit with your children's feet in the street. That's not a good idea. You want to make certain that if you're taking medications that you do that you be careful of exposure to the sun, that you hydrate yourself properly, and set a specific time. And keep an eye on your kids, they tend to tire quickly.
Now, when we have the Woodward Dream Cruise for the whole weekend, we do have some temporary fire lane parking that we put up. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, what we've done is for a block or 2 or 3 west of Woodward Avenue from 12 Mile all the way to 11 Mile, in addition to some certain north-south streets where we take away parking on both sides or one additional side. We have marked them all no parking, fire out, towaway zone. The reason for this is because we get such a large influx of people coming to the area to observe the Dream Cruise, or a lot of people come late just to watch us close the road down. We have had situations in years past, before we took this particular action, for the safety and benefit of the community, we could not get a fire truck down one of the streets because parking was on both sides.
Okay.
So we've simplified it by making it the fire hydrant side of the street in most cases. But please watch the signs, it's for everyone's safety. It's important to remember that the general business of our Public Safety Day does not stop simply because we have a classic car parade, Cruise Fest, and a Dream Cruise taking place. Both are running at the same time, so we need to have access for emergency purposes for everybody.
Okay. One issue that I've seen over the years being down at the Dream Cruise is people who put water or different substances on the street to have the cars burn out. It is a safety measure for all the people around. Can you talk a little about that?
Well, it's contrary to motor vehicle code to put anything in the street. It's contrary to motor vehicle code especially to assist in that sort of activity, and it's contrary to motor vehicle code for people to quote unquote burn rubber, spin out, or whatever they call it. The problem with that is, number one, it's not in a safety zone like a racetrack, a proper track where these types of activities are allowed or they're safe to perform. If someone loses control or there's a failure in a motor vehicle with people in that close of proximity to cars burning rubber, it can take off, the driver won't be able to stop it, and we'll have people seriously injured or even killed if a car jumps a curb with the tires burning at that rate or spinning at that rate.
And we have had cars jump the curb in the past. Luckily, so far, nobody's been injured, but this is just another example of what we're trying to avoid.
We have had that happen in the past. We had it one year where people had just gotten up to leave Woodward south of 12, and it wasn't 30 seconds after that, a car was burning rubber, spinning wheels, and it took off on him, it lost control, and he spun right over the curb, right across the area where the people had been sitting, and landed on a service drive.
So we could have had a pretty serious...
We'd have had 6 very seriously injured people because they all would have wound up underneath that car.
This next question comes from actually a resident. They emailed this in, and they said that at the cruise or Cruise Fest, when you have your children, there's a chance that your child could get lost. What advice would you give our parents or our residents if they were to unfortunately be separated from the child at the Cruise Fest or the cruise?
Okay, we want to address that in 2 parts.
Okay.
First, the child is lost. Number one, the first impulse is to go look, which in most cases, you'll get 40, 50, or 100 feet away, you'll find the child. The second thing to remember is if that happens, remember what your child is wearing that day. In a panic, people will forget.
Right.
Or they'll remember yesterday's clothes instead of today's. So take a moment to remember color and type of clothing. The next thing is if your child should come up missing, then notify us or have somebody notify us and stay where you are. Let us come to you. Also, that gives the opportunity for the child, if the child's old enough to remember, to get back to the area where he left, where he or she left. On the other side of that, if you find a child who appears to be out on its own, stay where you are and call us. Almost everybody in this area has a cell phone, or there's somebody within close proximity, or you're going to be right in front of a business. You step aside, please call the police. I found a child. Please have the police come here. I'll have the child with me. Don't take the child up and down. Stay where you are. It's important to remember that.
So,
notify us immediately if there's any doubt.
So call us and stay in that area.
That's right.
That's the best way to unite
That's the
child
best
and
thing.
parent.
That's the best thing to do. It gives us a much better chance to gain additional information, to tighten down the area where we need to be looking.
Well, each year, both events seem to get bigger and bigger. How much planning goes into the Cruise Fest and Dream Cruise?
Even though we've been doing this for over a dozen years now, and we have basically a plan in place, there are a multitude of hours goes into effect. My time, other officers' time. We have a meeting in Royal Oak twice every year for the commanders from Woodward Avenue, from Ferndale to Pontiac, the Sheriff and the State Police, our ambulance company, Alliance Mobile Health, the various fire departments. We have it all put together in a plan so everyone knows where the command post will be, who's going to cover what areas. Everyone has jurisdiction up and down Woodward from Wednesday through Saturday. Full jurisdiction as if it was your own town. So anywhere you need to go to help, or anyone that comes in to help you, will have full powers of arrest and authority, just like the local police department, so that we have a smooth transition in the event of an emergency.
Well, you mentioned some of the other departments, the state police, the sheriff. How much assistance does Berkeley receive from outside departments for the Cruise Fest and for the Dream Cruise?
The Oakland County Sheriff's Department over the years has been extremely generous with motor officers, horses, traffic control officers, Oakland County Reserve deputies. The state police has been very forthcoming. We have their bomb dog available to us. We have the Oakland County Emergency Radio, amateur radio people who provide us with another level of radio communication. Should say your radio not function, you know that the locations on the list you have, that the gentleman in the orange vest with the radio can talk directly back to our station. We put a lot of things in place, some of which have been post 9/11, I'll be quite frank. We have a lot of things in place, and hopefully we never need them, but we do have things in place should an emergency arise.
Well, very good. Well, thank you for being my guest on Behind the Badge.
Well, I appreciate it very much. I hope everyone enjoys that weekend, and especially downtown Berkeley for the Classic Car Parade and the Cruise Fest.
We hope that you got some valuable tips for when you're out here at the Dream Cruise and what's going to be going on that weekend. Next, we have our department hot rod, a specially built car by a couple of our officers many years back. And it's going to take a lot more than just a little bit of gas to keep this thing running. To our residents, our department hot rod, or what we call 427. With me are two of the guys who helped create this car, retired Lieutenant Jim Smith and Officer Mike Garnett. Hi guys, and welcome to Behind the Badge.
Thank you, Andrew.
No problem. Lieutenant Smith, let me start with you. Where did the idea for this car originate?
Back in August of '94, former Chief Lieutenant Henderlight, Mike, and myself were on the desk one night just talking and what-ifing about having a departmental hot rod, and 18 months later, after writing a bunch of letters, it came to be.
Great. Mike, can you explain what type of engine or what type of special parts make this car a hot rod?
Well, what happened was with this car, we originally had a 427 cubic inch Chevrolet engine donated by one of our police reserves, and that's how it got the number 427. But it was basically an old truck motor that was worn out, and we were fortunate enough to make contact with a company that just emerged from bankruptcy, who shall remain unnamed, and they were willing to donate the parts that we needed, and now we have a high-performance 502 cubic inch, 502 horsepower engine. We have a transmission that was built by a guy who builds racing transmissions. The rear end was built by DTS company out in Fraser for the high horsepower. So it's basically, it's a loaded race car.
Okay. Jim, where can we see this car for our residents?
A lot of times it's special events. We'll be at the parade, the Cruise Fest. It'll be out at the Dream Cruise. It's at the Art Bash and Berkeley Days. It's out at special events that we have the car out, and it's a public relation car that, as Mike mentioned, the drivetrain was donated, but everything that's the residents see is donated. There's not any taxpayer money in it at all. From the tires up to the light bar on the top, it was all donated by the different corporations and individuals.
That's awesome, and the car looks great. Mike, where did we come up with the design, especially the flames?
Well, at the time this car was built, the police cars in our town were white with blue stripes on them, and that's how we started. This car originally started out a dark gray with a dark gray interior, and one of our officers who's retired now, Mike Boyle, is a body man on the side, and he was the one who did all the paint and the work on it. And we wanted the blue and the white incorporated along with the stripe. And then we just got to talking again, which is a dangerous thing when three of us get together, and we just decided it'd be kind of neat to have flames. And Mike Boyle said he'd never done them, but he'd try them, and that's how this came to be.
Jim, last question I have for you. Where has this car been other than just here in Berkeley?
It's been to Canada at the International Emergency Response Day. It was over there several times. It's been at the Autorama at Cobo Hall, also at the North American International Auto Show at Cobo Hall, and a lot of local car shows that it's been around to. And while we're talking about that, there was two other guys that were involved in the car. As Mike mentioned, Mike Boyle
Yep.
and Sergeant Tom Zenzel were also the group of the original five that came up with the idea and worked on the
And of the
vehicle.
five, three are now retired.
Three retired. What is one of your favorite memories with this car?
I think one of the favorite memories is on Woodward Avenue, and we were driving. It was around the cruise, and somebody came up with a hot rod, and they thought this was just a 350 badged with a 502, and the car showed them that it wasn't a 350, that it was a 502.
Mike, what about you?
I just like the fact that the group of the five of us, we really worked hard. We worked to the point where we were ready to give up, and luckily we didn't. And I like the response that we've gotten from the people in town. I mean, everybody around here and you can go all around this this county, knows that this car is Berkeley's. And we were honored. At one point, there was an officer from, I believe, Bloomfield Township, who was killed by a drunk driver, but he was also a drag racer with his own car, and his family called here and requested our car to be in his funeral procession, which we were honored to bring out there and do. And it crosses lines between police and the public and the car people and the kids. The kids like it because it's loud and it's bright and it's different, and they feel more comfortable just talking to us, which we've talked a ton to a lot of people. We just wanted to show people that we're human too, that we have fun too, and we wanted to do something that was fun for the city. And the response has been really good, even through a successive chief that we've had. I mean, when the first time he saw it, he was even amazed by what we had done. So I take a lot of pride. The group of the 5 of us, we worked very, very hard to get this thing on the road. With the retirement of the 3 guys, it left it basically to Tom and I, and him and I had a long discussion, and we talked with some of the other guys, and we wanted this car to continue well beyond the time when we're here. And I mean, I really hope that's true. And we brought in Andrew Hatfield and Ron Gabriel into the team to take care of the car, and by taking care of it, I mean their wallets, and to keep providing the functions that we do with the public. So, and hopefully this car will continue to last, and someday when they're old and gray like us, they'll be bringing in somebody who isn't born yet to take over too.
There you go.
And I'm sure we'll take good care of it. And I think the residents would like to thank Mike Garnett, Jim Smith, Bruce Henderlight, Mike Boyle, and Tom Zenzel for all their hard work. We love seeing this car out there. It's great that this has all been donated by local businesses. If you would like to see the department hot rod, stop by any time that we have it. We'd love to see you out during the cruise. And I'm sure Mike, Lieutenant Smith, would love to give you a closer look at it. Thank you. We're glad that we could share with you our department hot rod. And if you'd like to take a closer look, contact us at the Berkeley Police Department. Next, we have Judge's Corner, where Judge Wittenberg's going to go over civil infractions and misdemeanors and the difference between the two. He's also going to go over certain tickets that could be written out here at the Dream Cruise.
I'm Judge Jamie Wittenberg, and I would like to welcome you to another segment of Judge's Corner. With the Dream Cruise fast approaching and traffic on Woodward already starting to increase, I thought it would be beneficial to talk today about the differences between civil infractions and criminal traffic offenses and give you some examples of each. Here in Michigan, the law recognizes several types of traffic offenses. Years ago, all traffic offenses were classified as crimes. The offenders were tried in criminal courts and, if found guilty, were punished by fines and imprisonment. As the number of drivers and vehicles increased, the burden on the criminal courts became unmanageable. In 1979, the Michigan legislature amended many sections of the Motor Vehicle Code, changing the status of many traffic misdemeanors to civil infractions. Many minor traffic offenses were thereby decriminalized and are now adjudicated in hearings, either formal or informal, rather than through trials. If you remember, on a previous episode of Judge's Corner, I discussed the topic of civil infractions and what options were available to an individual who received a ticket. So, what is a civil infraction and how is it different from a criminal matter? A civil infraction is an act or omission prohibited by law which is not a crime and for which civil sanctions may be ordered. The term crime means an act or omission forbidden by law which is not designated as a civil infraction and which is punishable upon conviction by any one or more of the following: imprisonment, fine not designated as a civil fine, removal from office, disqualification to hold an office of trust, honor, or profit under the state, or any other discipline required by statute. Since civil infraction hearings are civil proceedings, adjudication of a civil infraction violation follows the rules of civil procedure, the same rules that apply like when an individual sues another for breach of contract. For a civil infraction, the court must decide either in favor of the plaintiff or in favor of the defendant by a preponderance of the evidence. Because the defendant no longer faces the possibility of going to jail, the procedural safeguards necessary in a criminal case, like the right to a jury trial, the right to appointed counsel for indigence, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and strict adherence to the rules of evidence are not observed. Unlike in a criminal matter, a driver who is cited for a civil infraction does not plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest. He or she must either admit responsibility with an explanation, or deny responsibility for the civil infraction. Defendant drivers are not convicted, but instead are found responsible. Because a civil infraction is not a crime, findings of responsibility are not reported on the defendant's criminal record. However, they are reported to the Secretary of State and appear on the defendant's master driver record, maintained, of course, by the Secretary of State. There are numerous civil infractions for which a motorist may be ticketed. One of the most common is a violation of the basic speed law. If a person is found responsible in court for speeding, he or she will face a fine and possible points on their driving record. Using a road like Woodward, for example, speeding in excess of 10 miles per hour or less is 2 points. By more than 10 miles per hour, but not more than 15, is 3 points. And for anything more than 15 miles per hour above the speed limit, it is 4 points. Speeding on a limited access freeway like 696 or I-75 carries different penalties. 1 to 5 over is 0 points, 6 to 10 over the speed limit is 1 point, 11 to 15 miles per hour over is 2 points, and 16 to 25 miles per hour over the speed limit is 3 points, and 26 miles per hour or more over the speed limit is 4 points. Failure to drive the minimum speed on the freeway will result in 2 points. Any civil infraction involving a turning violation, a failure to yield, or an improper passing will result in a fine and 2 points. Some examples of these are failing to yield the right-of-way, failing to yield to an emergency vehicle, or failing to yield to a police officer's signal. Any violation dealing with a failure to stop will result in a fine and 3 points on the motorist's driving record. Examples are disobeying a stop sign, or a traffic control device, or a traffic signal, or an amber light, or a school bus. Some of the more common examples of criminal traffic offenses for which a person faces the possibility of jail are operating while intoxicated or impaired, driving while license suspended, reckless driving, and drag racing. These are misdemeanors, and a defendant faces up to 93 days in jail and or a $500 fine plus court costs. A defendant could also be placed on probation for these offenses. As well, up to 6 points could be placed on a driver's record. If a motorist is found guilty of transporting or possessing open alcohol in a motor vehicle or driving without a valid license, the maximum penalty is up to 90 days in jail and or a $100 fine plus court costs. If a person ever has any questions about a criminal matter, they should contact an attorney. You can also contact us here at the Berkeley District Court, but our clerks are prohibited by law from giving any legal advice. If there are any legal topics you would like to see covered on Judge's Corner, please do not hesitate to email or call the show. I'm Judge Jamie Wittenberg, and I will see you next time on another episode of Behind the Bad.
We'd like to thank Judge Wittenberg for telling us the difference between civil infractions and misdemeanors, and we hope that you avoid all those citations during the Woodward Dream Cruise. Next, we're going to go over power lines with Officer Geary and the dangers that can come from them.
Hello, I'm Public Safety Officer Geary, here to talk to you about safety when it comes to down power lines. Today we're lucky enough to have a representative from DTE to help me out with this topic. Sir, will you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Tom Martin. I'm the Corporate Safety Manager for DTE Energy.
Excellent. Sir, what are some conditions in which power lines end up coming down?
In Michigan, it's generally associated with thunderstorm activity. Usually would be in the spring and the summer. Of course, anytime we get significant winds, down power lines are always an issue.
Yes. If you end up seeing a down power line, what should you do?
Well, first of all, of course, don't touch it. Then you need to look at the power line and make a couple decisions. If this is a situation that represents an emergency, an immediate danger to someone's life or safety, the first thing you should do would be to call 911. If it doesn't, if it's just a down power line, certainly that's a safety issue. However, you can call DT Energy Direct. The number is 1-800-477-4747 and report the down power line.
Okay. Are there areas in which you should be extra cautious if you see a down power line?
Well, anytime you see a down power line, you need to assume that it's live. Even if you don't see it arcing and sparking and dancing around on the ground, it still can be live. There can be live electricity in there. It's still a danger, so you should always assume that. You should always make sure that you stay at least 20 feet or more away from the down power line. If the down power line is in contact with anything metallic, especially fences, aluminum siding, anything like that, always assume that the metallic object that the power line's in contact with is energized and also could present a shock hazard.
Okay. What should you do if you are in your vehicle and a power line falls onto your vehicle?
Stay in your vehicle. If you have a cell phone, this would be a good time to call 911. While you're in your vehicle, you're insulated from the electricity, so you're always better off staying in the vehicle. The only exception to that would be, of course, if your vehicle's on fire, then you have to make one of two decisions. They're going to be tough decisions either way, and that would be either to stay in the vehicle as long as possible and then try to leave the vehicle, or leave the vehicle early. But you're always better off trying to stay in the vehicle. If you do have to leave the vehicle, if you have no other choice, one thing that you want to remember, always keep your feet together if you're near an energized conductor like a down power line or if the power line's near your vehicle. The reason for that is as electricity from a down power line or on top of a vehicle will be arcing into the ground or going into the ground, it sort of, in a sense, pools around the area where this is occurring. And by keeping your feet together, you keep the voltage potential between your feet at relatively the same. If you were to take a step, you might have a different voltage potential between your one leg and the other leg and actually get current to flow between your two legs, and that would be a bad thing.
Those are some great tips. Do you have any other helpful tips that would help our residents or viewers?
Certainly make sure that children stay away from down power lines. They are, especially if they're arcing, they're kind of fascinating to watch. Children will be attracted to that. At least 20 feet. 20 feet's even fairly close for that. Always watch out for fences. We do, when we have down power lines, we do send crews out typically, particularly if it's down across the major thoroughfare. In a major disaster situation, it may be quite some time before we would get someone out there either to tape it off or actually to do some sort of service activity. Always you can report power outages, down power lines, any kind of concerns that you would have to the DTE hotline number, 1-800-477-4747.
Thank you very much for being on our show today and taking time out.
You're very welcome.
I hope all our viewers and residents learned a lot about how to handle down power lines, and remember, you can always call 911 if you have any questions.
We hope you now see the dangers if lines are down, and especially what to do. Next, we have a question that came from one of our residents. He wanted to know, how do we get the air into our air bottles when we fight fires? So with us is going to be Officer Gabriel to explain that process.
Hello, I'm Public Safety Officer Ron Gabriel, and I'm here today to talk about the Unicus Cascade system, which we received back in 2007 from a grant that is also shared with the following departments of Oak Park Public Safety, Huntington Woods Public Safety, and Beverly Hills Public Safety. Now what this system can do, and what it does, it fills up our air tanks for our fire service, which are also located on our fire trucks. During the fire scene, what happens, officers will breathe this air through their fire mask, and these tanks will get low. And a low pressure alarm will sound. That's telling you the tanks are low with the oxygen, and that means you have to change out, and what will happen, the officers can proceed back onto the fire ground and complete the job. And at the end, what happens with all the empty air tanks is that we have to come here to this machine, this cascade system, and place the bottles in here. But first we check the bottle for any defects, any damage to the outside, anything like that. So what happens is you can place up to 3 at a time, which is very helpful and convenient, and it gets our equipment back in service on the fire truck. Next is that you hook up the hose to the tank. Make sure the cylinder's open. And like I said, you can put 3 at a time. You close it up. It's sealed. So if anything goes wrong inside this compartment here while it's filling up the air tank, it's contained in one area. So it's for our safety, this machine helps us a lot. And what happens is there's 4 different banks to have the air system in here, and the compressor fills up these 4 banks with filtered air, which is clean for the fire officers to breathe in. And what happens is that once we've got everything all connected, we make sure the bank is on and that it's full of the air. We adjust our regulator to the pressure that is on the bottle. Like this was a 3500. So what we do is we adjust the regulator and we turn up the inlet pressure to the fill pressure to 3500. And then we slowly crack open each tank that's going to be filled. But for instance, like we only have 1 in here right now, so we're only going to use the number 1 tank to fill number 1. And what you do is you open it very slowly. That way the oxygen can fill that tank. The air will flow into there very freely and not fast, and it gets the bottle all warm. And that's what the regulator sets it at, so it won't go any more than that. So it goes right to that amount, and then if any of these banks were empty, then you open up a second bank, and you fill on 2 and 3 and so on. And what this system does, it has a compressor inside there, a Bauer compressor, that actually refills each one of these banks if one is empty. Also, it has an emergency stop button, it has the alarms, and it has all digital readouts. So if anything goes wrong with the system, it'll automatically shut down. And it's a very safe, and it's up to date, and it gets cleaned on a regular basis by the people that sell it to us. They come out and maintenance this. And that is all I have with this system that we have. But I'd like to thank you for watching Behind the Badge, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
We hope you enjoyed our show this month. Remember, if any kids want to be on our show, contact us at behindthebadge@berkeleymich.net. We hope to see you soon.